Rolling.
Sir, I would like to bring to your notice that as per Division of Toxicology and Human Health Sciences, Center for Disease Control and Prevention, USA, it is clearly stated that cadmium can be measured in blood, urine, hair or nails. The amount of cadmium in the blood shows recent exposure, in the urine shows recent or past exposure. However, it has been clearly stated that cadmium levels in hair or nails are not as useful as an indication of when and how much cadmium you may have taken in. Partly because the cadmium from outside your body may attach to the hairs or nails. Now, in this situation where the hair samples were collected in late 70s and were tested almost 20 years or 30 years later, what is the authenticity of the report on these hair specimens?
In fact, this is almost like in continuation of what I have already stated. We are first of all saying that you got a sample, you tested something, you found something unexpected, totally. Now, actually let us look at that as perhaps being authentic. What should you have done to really make it authentic? Do double testing. Was that done? I don't think so. So that aside, suppose even double testing has been done, second result has also come as high. Now we come to the second stage. The first stage is addressed, but it doesn't seal the issue. There are several stages before we come to the final conclusion that he was poisoned and the poisoning agent is so and so. You understand? So first step itself is now actually open, isn't it? It's not yet closed. But now let us look at the issue of what did you exactly ask me just now?
Is the hair sample an proper indication? Because
Yes. So let us look at the type of sample that was selected here. I admit that there are some constraints perhaps where you could not get the ideal kind of biological sample like what you mentioned, blood or urine, and even the other tissues perhaps not accessible, and therefore hair which was available has been done. I accept all that. Now my questions are this. Number one, the hair sample that was done has come, I think, down from hand to hand over a period of several years, maybe decades. So that itself is a matter of concern as to how much of contamination has been not just added, multiplied over a period of time. How are you sure that it is really in a flawless state from the time when it was cut or clipped or whatever it is to the time when it was analyzed? As a toxicologist, as a man of science, I would say that we cannot be sure. You can say you are sure, but you can't convince me, because the problem with meta-analysis is, if I may draw a parallel, like DNA analysis. Even the slightest doubt that there is contamination will make the whole test invalid. It is like that. DNA analysis, is supposed to be one of the best methods today of identifying some biological substance or fluid. But if there is even the slightest doubt raised by somebody that the tissue or the source of the biological sample is in doubt, you cannot proceed further. It's as simple as that. So if there is slightest doubt about the origin of the hair samples or the fact that it could be contaminated, whatever test you do subsequently is under a cloud. And when you look at that as if it is something like, the ultimate, the result that I've got that proves my point, no, I don't agree. And I don't think an average man of science will agree, because there are so many uncertain issues here. Number one, hair sample itself not really good for meta-analysis. Number two, the kind of method that was selected here, I don't agree was really the best. Number three, repeat testing was not done. Number four, the choice of the metal. Let us come to that. Cadmium, I have already mentioned, is a very unusual metal, hardly ever used in history as poison for malicious purposes or for homicides. Maybe some esoteric cases may be there here or there. But we look at metals like arsenic, the classical Victorian poison for murder, or maybe in contemporary times something like thallium, or even some radioactive material and things like polonium we have come across in a case. But cadmium, you ask me as a toxicologist with 15 years of experience, I would say that is a very unusual kind of thing that you should choose. What makes it ideal as a homicidal poison? I don't see anything. It causes almost the same kinds of manifestations like any other heavy metal, very difficult to obtain. I don't think whatever anybody says, you can lay your hands on cadmium so easily. Somebody can say, you pick up some nickel cadmium battery and you can extract it. How do you extract it? It's easier said than done, because there will be a lot of other things associated with somebody with really that kind of chemistry background will have to be there, or somebody with that kind of accessibility to cadmium. I don't see any of that here. In this particular case, when you say cadmium poisoning, the cadmium itself, I think, has been somehow picked up from, maybe dozens of metals for some obscure reason that I can't understand as to who thought of it and why. Was there anything in Srila Prabhupada's condition before he passed away that raised somebody's suspicion that cadmium may be involved? I would be very curious to know that, because cadmium does not have that kind of specific manifestations. And even if you look at its toxic profile and look at some kind of events that have occurred, associated with that, like in Japan in the early, previous century, where contamination of some water body occurred because of cadmium, and the local population used that water for their paddy fields, and they started developing a lot of problems like bone pain especially, and it came to be known as a itai disease, or the ouch disease. That is, over a period of time, getting such severe bony pain, they were virtually not able to function. They couldn't even sometimes walk. Towards the later stages, fractures were so common. None of that we have seen in this particular case, isn't it? Cadmium attacks the bone, and that particular entity, itai disease, shows that if it is chronic poisoning, especially cadmium, bone would have been involved. That is one of two conditions. One is called osteomalacia, where there is softening of bones. The other is osteoporosis, where the bones become brittle. Both of them add to the fact that there is severe pain, bone pain, weakness, and easy fractures, none of which I have come across here for somebody to raise a suspicion there may be cadmium involved, because that is one of the few specific manifestations of cadmium. Other than that, much of it is like any other heavy metal. Like it attacks the liver, it attacks the kidney, it attacks blood cells, it attacks the nervous system and so on. But then any heavy metal can do that. So why did you pick cadmium? And if there is a particular reason, I would like to know about it. So what I am coming to is, the whole thing appears like somebody has already decided that A, it is poisoning, B, we should say it is cadmium. So now let's look at what are the things that will fit into this picture. It looks like that, I am sorry to say. But as a person with that kind of objective mind here, I have no intention of taking sides. I feel that the whole thing is being constructed like that. It is like that classical English phrase, give a dog a bad name and then hang it. That is, you already have decided that you want to prove this. Now let us gather evidence to prove that. That is why I am really disturbed about this. If somebody had said, these are the manifestations this person suffered from, indicating cadmium, therefore we selected that, and then we found that it's high level, yes, that is a logical progression. And here it appears to me there does not seem to be that kind of logic involved. And what about arsenic? We will be of course coming to that, I think, subsequent questions, but I believe arsenic was also raised. Antimony, I think, was also raised in some samples, if I am not mistaken. Why did you not in that case complete the job and do analysis of all the heavy metals? It would have been very interesting to know what other metals also would have had that kind of a picture where it is raised. So whole thing is a mess. Now how do we interpret it? You understand? Why did you stop with 5 metals? Why not add thallium? I would definitely suggest thallium if you are looking at homicidal poisoning with heavy metal. Yes, if you have not selected thallium, give me reasons why thallium was not taken.
So actually they are saying that cadmium, in their book they have written, page number 214, cadmium was the primary poison with antimony and arsenic coincidental in comparatively minor but elevated amounts as secondary poison. Srila Prabhupada was poisoned with dramatically high level of cadmium deliberately and intentionally over 6 to 10